In today's video, we're going to be covering another U.S. highway, this one being US 97, and we're also going to see how inconsistent Oregon DOT is with signing its control cities. US 97 goes through California, Oregon, and Washington, being 669.61 miles long. Here is where US 97 begins at I-5 in Weed, California, and is signed north for Klamath Falls. Why didn't it sign north for Bend? Bend is 5 times the size of Klamath Falls, yet California also decides to sign it. But in Weed, when we meet California 265, we're now signed north for Klamath Falls and Bend. Just sign Bend. Sorry for the stream equality, it's a photosphere. Anyways, on the mileage side, we have McDowell in 40 miles, Doris in 50 as our secondary, and Klamath Falls as our primary in 71. Change it to Bend, please. Here on Mount Shasta, we get some pretty amazing views. We'll get some better views of it going southbound, though. Here we are at the California-Oregon border, and the Oregon welcome sign here is much better than the one in the Oregon free video. You should go watch it after you finish this video if you haven't. Link in the description. And if you couldn't tell from earlier in the video, Oregon also signs Klamath Falls that it's in 15 miles. This really should be Bend. In Klamath Falls, we are now signed north for Bend, which it should have been signed since the beginning. On the mileage side, we have Crater Lake as our secondary in 54 miles, which you don't even go to, but it is a pretty cool lake. But we have Bend as our primary at 134 miles, which is the correct decision here. In Bend, we meet US 28. We are now signed north for Redmond and Portland. Portland seems dumb, but we meet US 26 in Madras, which takes you to Portland, so it's actually a good control city. But this is also where the inconsistencies with signing the same control city start. In Redmond, we meet Oregon 126, and we're now signed north for Madras and the Dalles. What happened to signing Portland? Yes, you meet US 26 in Madras and it takes you to Portland, but who has heard of Madras? Sign Madras and Portland instead of Madras and the Dalles. In Madras, we meet US 26 and we're concurring with it through Madras, and we are now signed for Madras. We're only signed for Madras though because we're not in downtown Madras yet. I said Madras a lot there, sorry if I confused you. But what happened to Portland being signed? Like, seriously. When US 26 leaves us, it is signed west for Mount Hood and Portland, and we're now signed north for Biggs and the Dalles. Despite the Dalles not being on US 97, it's actually on US 197. It is the right choice considering how Biggs' population is 5. This mileage sign is pretty weird. We only have US 197 cities on the mileage sign, having Maupin as our secondary in 46 miles and the Dalles as our primary in 86. But this is also inconsistent because Biggs has just randomly disappeared. Like, I want an explanation on where it went, please. When we meet US 197, it is signed north for Maupin and the Dalles, and we are now signed north for Wasco and Biggs. This should just be Wasco since Biggs has 5 people and Wasco has 417. Here's yet another case of Oregon DOT being inconsistent. On the mileage signs, Biggs disappeared and our primary becomes Wasco in 59 miles. In Wasco, we possibly have the most strange sign yet. Biggs Junction in 9 miles. They've always called it Biggs. Why call it Biggs Junction now? And we have the Dalles as a control city again in 33 miles because we're meeting I-84, which will take you there. But you could have just taken a faster route to get to the Dalles by now. Why have the Dalles signed again? Just sign like something in Washington or like sign Boise. I don't know. Not Dalles. When we meet I-84, we are now signed north for Yakima and Goldendale, which are both in Washington, but signing Yakima here is the right choice. You could remove Goldendale from the sign, but it really doesn't matter if Yakima's here. I-84 signed east for Rufus and Pendleton. Why not Boise? Oregon DOT is being so provincial here. I-84 signed west for the Dalles and Portland. I would say to remove the Dalles, but considering how it has been signed only because of this interchange, you kinda gotta put it up on the sign now. Here we cross into Washington over the Columbia River. Here's the welcome to Washington sign about a mile in the state or so. Here, US 97 turns left, and it is briefly concurred with Washington 14, and it is signed east for Kennewick and west for Vancouver. Why not Portland? Vancouver is a suburb. This is Washington DOT being provincial here. Anyways, we are signed north for Yakima and Goldendale. Get rid of Goldendale. When we leave Washington 14, we turn right and everything has the same control cities as earlier. On the mileage side, we have Goldendale as our secondary in 10 miles and Yakima as our primary in 81. In Goldendale, we meet Washington 142, and we are now signed north for Yakima. In this part of Washington, it's kind of barren, empty, and mountainous, but obviously we'll get some better views going southbound, because why wouldn't we? In Union Gap, we're now going to run concurrent with I-82 for Yakima, and also on the overhead sign, there's no signage of US 97, but the US 97 shield is there with I-82 on the reassurance shields, and we're also concurrent with US 12 here. After we get out of Yakima, we are now signed for Ellensburg, and as Control City Freak said in his I-82 video, this should be Seattle. Also, there's no mention of US 97 here. Here's where I-82 ends, meaning we leave I-82, and we're now going to run concurrent with I-90 westbound, but here I-90 is signed east for Advantage and Spokane. When we get on I-90, this time US 97 is signed, and we are signed west for Seattle. I like how there's no city for US 97 because of how large Seattle is. 3 miles down the road, we leave I-90, and we are signed north for Wenatchee. Immediately after the exit, we encounter a roundabout, and we turn left here. On the mileage side, we have Junction, Washington 10 in 2 miles, Junction US 2 in 50 miles as our secondary, and Wenatchee as our primary in 70. Here we have some pretty amazing views of the mountains, and we'll also get some pretty cool views going southbound. In Pashastin, we meet US 2 and we're gonna run concurrent with it towards Wenatchee. We're now exiting ourselves outside of Wenatchee so we don't actually go to Wenatchee. Washington 285 does though. And we're now signed for Okanogan and Spokane. Okanogan is for US 97 and Spokane is for US 2. Here the two highways turn left and they have the same control cities as they did earlier. Here the highways split from each other and they each receive no control cities. But on the Mywood side, we can see that our control city is still Okanogan and 75 miles. In Okanogan, we meet Washington 20 and we're gonna run concurrent with it for Penticton, which is actually in Canada. But if we're gonna assign something in Canada, it should be Kelowna because it is 4 times larger than Penticton. In Tenascan, Washington 20 leaves us and it is assigned east for Republic. On the Mywood side, we have Oroville in 16 miles, with Canadian border in 22 and Penticton in 67. It should be Kelowna at the bottom line. And here's the Canadian customs, and also this means this is the end of US 97. In Canada, we can see a 2 USA here, but there is no mention of US 97. And here's the American customs, and this also means this is the beginning of US 97. Here we get a South US 97 sign, but we have no control cities on it. And here's our Welcome to Washington sign. On the Mywood side, we have Wenatchee as our primary in 140 miles. I like how going southbound we skip Okanogan because Wenatchee is larger than Okanogan. When we meet US 2, I couldn't find a sign that mentioned US 97, but we're still signed for Wenatchee. Here the two highways turn right, and we're now signed for Seattle, which is for both of the highways. Ellensburg for US 97 and Wenatchee also for both of the highways. Here we meet Washington 285 for Wenatchee, and the two highways exit themselves here, and the control cities are still for the same highways. When we leave US 2, we're signed south for Ellensburg and Seattle and 2 I-90, and US 2 is signed for Leavenworth, Stevens Pass, and Seattle. If you notice, both of the highways sign Seattle. US 2 goes to Seattle, however, US 97 doesn't. US 97 has Seattle signed, though, because of the 2 I-90 mention of the sign. I think this is fine as long as they have the other cities that they go to on the sign as well, which is what they do. On the Mywood side, we have Cle Elum in 47 miles, Ellensburg as our secondary in 51 miles, and Seattle is our primary in 130. Here are the views of the mountains we get going southbound, and it looks pretty cool. If you were taking US 97 to get to Seattle, you would go to Washington 970, which is a more direct way to get to I-90 from here, and we're now signed south for Ellensburg and Yakima. We're now gonna run concurrent with I-90 signed for Spokane and Yakima. When I-82 begins, we're now gonna run concurrent with it for Yakima. On the Mywood side, we have Junction, Washington 821 in 2 miles, Selah in 28, and Yakima in 32. When we leave I-82, we're signed south for Goldendale and Bend. Signing Bend all the way out here is incredible, considering how Oregon could even sign it choosing to sign Klamath Falls first. But on the mileage side, the control city becomes Toppenish in 14 miles. Why do they do this? I seriously don't know, but you should have just kept it as Bend. In Toppenish, we meet Washington 22, and we're now signed south for Goldendale. What happened to signing Bend? This really should be Bend, though. On the mileage sign, though, Goldendale becomes our secondary in 50 miles, and Bend is our primary in 200. Here we cross into Oregon over the Columbia River. And when we get into Oregon, we can see that we are still signed south for Bend, and we're also signed south for Wasco. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a Welcome to Oregon sign, but anyways, Wasco is our secondary in 9 miles, and Bend is our primary in 136. In Bend, we meet US 20, and we're now signed south for Mount Bachelor and Klamath Falls. Going southbound, Klamath Falls is fine to sign, though, because Klamath Falls is the largest city to go for on the rest of US 97. Here's the exit for downtown Bend and Mount Bachelor. On the Mywood side, Klamath Falls are still our primary control city, 131 miles. When we meet Oregon 140 in Klamath Falls, we're now signed south for Weed. This should be something like Sacramento or San Francisco because this is the way to get to either or from here. I don't know when the control city switches the doors. It probably does way earlier than this interchange, but I'm too lazy to figure that out. Anyways, our control city has now switched to Doris, which is even worse than Weed. Oh yeah, also, this place is in California, yet Oregon is signing it. Signed Sacramento or San Francisco, just not this. Welcome to California. This video is almost over. I actually like how California is citing it. They're citing like how I said they should do it. They're citing Weed as the secondary in 49 miles and Sacramento as our primary in 286. San Francisco would also work, but Sacramento's fine. I told you we'd get some pretty good views of Mount Shasta going southbound. I wasn't lying to you. When US 97 meets that at I-5, it is signed north for Portland and south for Redding. Why is it signed south for Redding? That kind of defeats the entire purpose of signing Sacramento. So that should be Sacramento, and Portland's fine for northbound. The control city should be for northbound, Bend, skip Klamath Falls, then Portland. Redmond/Portland is fine, but Portland is good. After meeting US 26, then do the Dalles until you meet US 197, where you then switch to Wasco. Then Boise or Yakima, either or works, or just both after Wasco. Then when you meet I-84, just Yakima. Yakima/Goldendale doesn't work though. After Yakima, don't do Ellensburg, have Seattle all the way until you leave I-90, where you would then switch to Wenatchee. After Wenatchee, you would then have Okanogan, then finally Kelowna instead of Penticton. And for southbound, they should be Wenatchee, then Ellensburg/Seattle. Then after you meet Washington 970, switch to Ellensburg/Yakima. Then just Yakima when you run concurrent with I-82. Then when you leave I-82, you can sign Bend, then after Bend, Klamath Falls, and finally Sacramento or San Francisco, but either or works, and at least they did Sacramento. If you guys enjoyed this video, I have other videos on my channel where I cover control cities on US highways, and I also have ones where I cover control cities on interstate and state highways. Also, leave a sub, it'd be greatly appreciated. Anyways, see y'all next time, bye!